to describe us? In team racing, we're definitely passionate, committed, hardworking, and daring. And we're so proud of what we have achieved thanks to that. But we are also a generous, funny, adventurous, and dreamy team. And the most important thing of all is that we're a family. A family that seeks to go very far and win Formula Student by becoming the benchmark team. And with your help, we can achieve this dream. How to describe us? In team racing, we're definitely passionate, committed, hardworking, and daring. And we're so proud of what we have achieved thanks to that. But we are also a generous, funny, adventurous, and dreamy team. And the most important thing of all is that we're a family. A family that seeks to go very far and win Formula Student by becoming the benchmark team. And with your help, we can achieve this dream. How to describe us? In team racing, we're definitely passionate, committed, hardworking, and daring. And we're so proud of what we have achieved thanks to that.
De todo el mundo.
But we are
Primer y
also
único equipo representando a México. Un sueño. Somos TM Racing, una escudería universitaria que nació con el sueño de representar a México en la Fórmula Student, una competencia británica donde universitarios de todo el mundo diseñan, construyen y superan sus límites. Somos un equipo de más de 50 estudiantes que buscan llegar a la segunda etapa de la competencia. Nos enfrentamos a la categoría de Concept Class, un reto de planear y diseñar un racing car que sea seguro de pilotar, eco-friendly y costeable. Es por esto que buscamos la ayuda de patrocinadores entusiastas que nos apoyen con los costos y manufactura del auto. Haz que el nombre de tu marca llegue al otro lado del mundo en esta gran competencia. Construyamos un sueño juntos. Más de 120 universidades de todo el mundo.
with Jill Prince on into a promising future. Welcome, Jill. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Well, it's nice, very nice to be here. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thank you for having the time to be here. It's such an honor to us. I'm going to give a little introduction about yourself. Dr. Jill Prince, Deputy Director at NASA's Langley Research Center, brings over 2 decades of expertise to the field of aerospace engineering. Her focus on aerobraking has been instrumental in advancing our understanding of spacecraft landing and trajectory control. With notable contributions to the successful landing of the Phoenix on Mars, Dr. Prince's groundbreaking work in autonomous aerobraking research has earned her prestigious accolades, including the Women in Aerospace Achievement Award and the NSC Leadership Award. It is a great honor with us to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
For me, not only as a member of our racing team, but also as a future mechanical engineer, it's really valuable to me having this conversation with such a extraordinary woman like you.
Oh,
So I want to first ask you what inspired you in pursuing your master's in aerobraking research, and what do you find the most fascinating about the field of study?
Well, to start off with, I came to NASA in my 20s, and it was not a dream of mine as a child. It wasn't something that I really expected to do. I really kind of fell into it, and I'm very grateful that I did. But as a child, I didn't have a huge inspiration or motivation to do aerospace engineering. I thought I would go into medicine. And then I did an internship in high school and helped with an autopsy. And I realized I did not want to work in that area of medicine. So I started looking into other areas, what I would like to do. I went to college not knowing what I would major in. I thought I might major in music and psychology. I really loved people and working with people. And it wasn't until I started taking some classes, and one was an introduction to planetary science, that I really got inspired by it. I had an advisor who asked me what I liked to read, and I loved reading about the planets and different atmospheres and different things about the solar system. But I didn't really think that people did that for a living. I thought it was a really nice hobby. Astronomy was a nice hobby, to see the planets, to see the rings around Saturn. I thought that was just amazing, but I didn't really consider it to be a career until I talked with people who actually did that. And my freshman year advisor in college told me to major in physics because it would give me a solid math background, and I could kind of do a lot more things with that. So I'd graduated from college with a degree in physics and astronomy and didn't know what I was going to do with that. I considered consulting and I considered teaching. I really didn't know until I saw an advertisement for a graduate school in aerospace engineering. And I hadn't been exposed to that, didn't really know what it was about. But looking at the classwork that was offered, it sounded amazing. So I applied to one engineering school, and that happened to be where I am right now at NASA Langley Research Center, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the work that I started to do. I started working immediately with data processing of things for the Mars Global Surveyor, and it was just fascinating to me. So the work really, it was really cool. It was just really cool, and I got to work on 3 different Mars missions, and the people I worked with were just so inspiring and really amazing. And I had really great mentors and advisors. And I've been here for 25 years.
That's wonderful. I want to take the part that you said that you, as a kid, really didn't like see yourself through at working at NASA. Kind of my story is kind of similar. I was always in the dance field. I wanted to be a professional ballet dancer, but at some point I didn't want it. So I go to engineering, but I didn't know what kind of field I wanted to involve myself. And now I'm in mechanical engineer. But the question here is, um, do you ever feel like something strange or kind of a feeling of not knowing where to go about this that you didn't see yourself from kid as a grown person to be in this field?
Every day. Every day, I sometimes wonder what I'm going to do next. But as a yes, I think there's a lot of pressure for children and for people in their teens and early 20s to. There's pressure to understand what to be, and I think that can change. And I think doing different things and saying yes to different opportunities, not necessarily drives you to where you want to go, but just as importantly, it can drive you against something that you don't want. It's just as important to figure out what you don't want to do as it is to figure out what you want to do. And I think just trying different things is the only way you can figure that out. Um, so yes, like I said, I was doing an internship in pathology as a child, and I didn't like it. My father was an oral surgeon, and he had me shadow him one time, and pulling out all the teeth. That no, that's me either. So um, even where I am right now, even in my current position, I don't expect to retire in this current position. So what else do I want to do? What other challenges do I want to have? And I think just being flexible, being willing to change and do different things and try things out is so important. And I don't think there should be pressure at one particular age in your life where you have to have everything figured out. I certainly don't have everything figured out. I don't know if anybody does. And if they do, they better expect to have some things shaken up because not everything goes to plan all the time.
Yeah, these things that you said that you always want more for yourself. What advice will you give to young female engineers who aspire to pursue a career in this field or in aerospace engineer or any STEM fields?
I think the only thing holding you back is your own desire to do whatever you want to do. If you want to be, if you have passion behind becoming an aerospace engineer, you can do that. I think that there are so many people out there that want to see you succeed and want everybody around them to be successful. It's not a competition in this world, and especially amongst women, it should never feel like a competition. For women to be successful, and we all want the best for everybody else. The only thing holding you back is whether or not you want to do it. The only thing holding you back from another degree, other than finances, sometimes can hold people back, but it's a determination, and whether or not you really want it. If you don't want it, that's important to know too, and then you can figure out something else that you want. But whatever you want to do, it's achievable. It's knowing when to ask for help and being determined to find a way to get there.
Yeah, we know that this field is mostly related to memes, but I want to ask you what if you have any challenge or yeah, any obstacle during your career about this kind of thing that we know nowadays we have more presence of women in the field, but if you ever felt like um, this wasn't something for you because of this thing.
I never felt like doors were closed to me as far as work. I felt like I had every opportunity available to me as far as applying for things that I wanted, people encouraging me to go after different opportunities that I might not have even seen myself. I thought that was pretty open to me. I thought the challenges sometimes were assumptions that people around me made. Um, I think people would assume, oh, you're not really an engineer, right? Because you're too X, Y, or Z to be an engineer. And I don't, that was challenging for me to get over. And I think another challenge, especially for women, is a fear of the word ambition. And I remember somebody telling me pretty early in my career, well, I see that you're ambitious. And I took offense. And I'm not ambitious. No, I'm polite and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. And that should not have been my reaction. And he actually corrected me at that time. This was an advisor of mine who said, Jill, that is not a bad word. Ambitious is a good thing. And if you have ambition, that's going to help you go further in your career. So I really valued that. And I think it's almost getting over your perception of yourself that's sometimes challenging for a lot of us. And I know a lot of us have imposter syndrome. That's a challenge to get over. But they're self-inflicted sometimes, and you can hear it from outside. But I think a lot of our own challenges come from within. And so getting
Yes.
over those mental hurdles and going after what you want should not be considered anything but a wonderful thing.
Yeah, going into something more technical of your career or your field, um, what is or how can you describe a significant project or breakthrough moment in your career that you're particularly proud of?
Let's see, a breakthrough moment that was important to me in my technical career. Um, I think something that I'm really proud of is helping to land the Mars Phoenix in
Yeah.
2008. And I worked 5 years on that mission, and I gave everything I had to that mission. I have two children, and they were both very, very young at the time, and so I was putting all of my emotion and all of my work ethic into everything. It just seemed that everything was coming at once. But when that landed, when you're working on a mission to Mars, the data takes 20 minutes to get to the planet and from the planet. So when it actually landed, when I saw that it landed, it had already happened 20 minutes ago. So there's nothing at that point you can do to help.
Yeah.
You had to just understand that those 5 years of effort that you put, the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into that mission, it's all you could do. It was already over. And when in those final 5 minutes before it was landing, and you're seeing the communication coming back from the spacecraft and everything happening as it's supposed to happen, and the final communication of touchdown, when you hear that the lander has landed safely, looking around and at my peers and seeing the emotion, the happiness, the hugging, the crying, the everything that was happening, you realize that everybody is human. We are all people. And that really made me think about things a little bit differently. It wasn't necessarily the work I was doing, it was the people I was working with. And I thought that was really important for my development. And after that mission, that was my last technical mission that I worked on, hands-on, doing all the number crunching. And I left that for other people to do, but I wanted to enable the people to get what they needed. So I got into management, and I think that was a big turning point in my career, to really look at the people aspect and what can I do to help people move forward rather than the missions move forward. So that was really probably a turning point in my career.
I can't imagine the feeling that you got that moment.
It was really exciting. It was like the whole world. I'm getting goosebumps just feeling about it now.
Oh.
Just thinking about all that emotion and happiness and seeing, I mean, engineers, we have aerospace engineers, all these men in the room crying. And I'm like, wait, what's happening here? It was really fun. Really fun.
How do you manage the thing that you're saying, that we're all humans, but I think that as engineers, there's some time that we forget that. I sometimes we are like so square in our own world, and we
Mhm.
didn't think or ask to ourselves what is beyond that, and what we can give to this human field to make this world better, no? So I want to ask you about how do you, as a NASA engineer, manage this thing, and how do you, yeah, put it in work through your day to day?
Yeah, I think so it's funny because I'm at fault in doing this too, and describing people as sometimes saying, oh, that person is very binary. It's very black and white, it's cut or dry. You hear these very ones or zeros things talking about somebody, but it's not at all. That person has feelings and they have emotions, but they're showing them differently. So understanding how those people work, and I say those people, it's just anybody who is different than yourself, anybody who processes data differently. You have to understand what motivates people, what inspires people, and what is the best environment for them to thrive. So that's just it's all. And I had somebody tell me, this was the chief engineer of the agency, tell me before, and I highly respect him. He said there are no technical problems at NASA. There are all people and communication problems. And he's absolutely right. We can work through anything that's challenging, that's hard, but the biggest problem is working with each other to get there. And sometimes things get lost in communication, lost in translation, lost in processing what's happening and communicating it to somebody else. That's very difficult to do. So that's something I'm continually learning, and learning how to do better. And I think it's something that we all kind of struggle with sometimes.
Following this thing that we were talking about, the feelings, emotions, being humans, how do you manage your personal life and also the leadership role that you put in work every day? How do you manage to do that? Because as women in this field, I think that we have the most pressure, and more if we have some leadership roles. So how do you manage and control that to yourself, your personal, but also your professional life?
Yeah, very difficult. I can't say that I'm all that good at it all of the time. But something, especially for other women, knowing that they are not the only person who has had to do this. I am married and I have 2 children. I'm very open at work about that, about that I have a family, and if I have to leave at 4 o'clock to get to my daughter's soccer game, I'm going to do that. I try to lead by example in saying there has to be some balance in your life and what is important to you. To me, my children are super important to me, and I'm going to do everything I can to attend their games, to go to their schools, to do everything that I have to do. If I have to do some extra work in the evening after that, then I will, but I don't have that expectation of everybody who works for me to do that. So it's finding the balance that's right for you, and it's never going to be 50-50. It's never going to be work is it's going to be depending on time. So today I might be 100% at work and I might put 12 hours in today. Tomorrow might be a lot less and I might have to do something else that's going to be good for myself. So I have to make sure that I myself am a priority as well. And it's not just women. Men have this issue too. And there are lots of dads who put in the exact same amount of time and effort into their families as the women do. But I think historically, it's been a traditional expectation for women to be that primary caregiver. My husband works at NASA as well, so we were both very understanding of what our schedules are, what we have to do to make things work, and making things work. There are oftentimes I'll be on travel and I will literally see him driving my way as I'm driving the other way, and okay, he's on travel this week. We're tag teaming to figure out who's gonna be the responsible at home for that day or that hour or that evening. So it's a struggle, but I think I thrive in chaos sometimes, so that sometimes makes it a little bit it makes it exciting, and that's what it should be. I mean, you should find your excitement in your life and where you want to spend that time, and that time will it'll be where you think it is important.
Yeah, I think it's something that we need to work because everyone had like different opportunities and different different things to work with. But going a little back with some technical things, how do you approach innovation and problem solving in your work, especially in your field or of advancing in these aerobraking techniques?
So that's a difficult one for us sometimes because when we build spacecraft, a lot of times we have to rely on what's already been done. So it's sometimes a lot easier to say, oh, this mission did that this way, so we have to do it that way. It's been proven, so therefore we have to do it again. And that's limiting sometimes. So whenever we get the opportunity to intentionally innovate and think outside the box and use our extra space, to think of different ways to do things, it's valuable. It just doesn't come as often as we'd like, of course. And I think there's a mindset at NASA previously that failure is bad. But I think we're latching on a little bit more in some areas of it's not only okay to fail, but we want to fail because that's where we learn the most. Obviously, that's not going to be in a case on a mission, on a human mission, but in some smaller areas where the risks are less and of the failure impacting something that we hold dear to us, it's really important to use not only analysis but trial by error and figuring out that didn't work, that blew up, that clearly caused a riff in something, but you learn the most from that. And we try to foster that. We intentionally give people time to create, to do new things. Some of our workspaces, we're trying to be more connected. So we're trying to get people to talk amongst themselves a little bit more in groupthink. I think people learn very quickly when there are a lot of people around you, and writing on whiteboards, using the common space around us to do that all together. That's something intentional that we're doing. The connectivity that we have, and I'm speaking with you on the Zoom call. I think that is enabling that. We didn't have that really before 5 years ago. Or at least we didn't utilize it before 5 years ago. But now I have 8-10 hours of meetings a day, where in a lot of the time I'm on the phone with people across the country and working together. And I think that helps us innovate a little bit more too, because there's just more and better communication.
Yeah, we know that everyone out there expect us to, as engineers, know everything. But do you ever need in NASA to be like humble and have this sensible way for yourself to say, I don't know, but I want to learn? How do I do
Oh, I think I'm the queen of I don't know, but I'm going to find somebody who does.
that?
So I think there are definitely. I mean, I work with some amazingly bright people, and some people know it, and some people are very humble, but overall, I think everybody's doing this for the mission. Everybody is trying to get samples from Mars or send people to the moon or do things, and everybody believes in that mission, that their own sense of self kind of comes in second to that. And so they're going to do whatever they can to make that mission succeed. I do believe the best in everybody and best intentions of everybody. And I think that we see that a lot at NASA. There are some very, very bright minds here, but there are also the people who are going to say, I don't know that answer, but I know somebody who did. And maybe that was 50 years ago, but I'll go and look that up. I'll do the literature searches and I'll figure it out. So I think that, and that's not just true with NASA. I'm sure that's everywhere, although my experience base is NASA itself. But I think people have the best intentions, and there are smart but humble people around.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because I think that everyone in this side, we think like, oh, they're engineers at NASA, they know everything, they never have questions about themselves. So
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what I was saying about, and especially in women want to see other women succeed. I think people just want people to be successful, and they'll do whatever they can to make it happen. And I've put myself out there and trying to help. I responded to a couple of emails today about getting people into intern and figuring out, how can I help her get from this point in her career to this point in her career. And everybody's going to go out of their way to help, because I think people generally want to be helpful.
yeah, we're moving a little with some people's questions.
Okay.
We have in here, what do you recommend young and foreign students who want to participate in our special investigation and exploration?
Oh, if you want to participate in exploration, so first of all, if you were interested in NASA exploration and what we were trying to do, I know that we have a lot of resources online. So I would look at the nasa.gov website, and there are educators resources, there are internships opportunities. I would also use LinkedIn. I do respond to a lot of questions that I get on LinkedIn. If you don't ask, the answer is always no, in my opinion. So it's always great to find those connections, make the connections, find the connections, and then follow up. with emails or phone calls or however you can. Because if you don't, I mean, you're stuck and you're by yourself and nobody's helping you. So, but the NASA website is really great in finding opportunities. So if you want to have a local school that wants to build a CubeSat and needs some help and some resources in how to do that, I think there's an area for that. If you want to get somebody to talk to your school or talk to a group of people, there's a speakers bureau that will do that. But there's also finding the people that know people through friends, through networks, through LinkedIn, and just sending the emails and asking the question.
Yeah, I think that in this field is really important to have a really good network for personal, but also professional things.
It's so important. So I help with these high school student programs in the summer, and I've had a few of them. I know when they're here, and when they're here, I intentionally sit in the cafeteria and I eat lunch by myself because I know that one of them will come up and ask me questions, and I love that. I love being a resource for them. And I've had people follow me for years and continue to follow up with emails. And I had one woman email me today and said, I applied to 30 internships, but I don't have any idea of where the process is now. Can you help me? Absolutely. I will try to. I mean, I can't promise her a job, but I can promise that I'll find some information for her. So I'll make those connections. And that is just, it's so valuable. It's so important, and constantly learning, going out and listening to the podcasts, doing the research, writing the papers. And if you see a paper that's written that really is exciting to you, find the co-authors. It's not hard to find an email address probably and say, hey, I read this paper. It was really great. I have some questions about it, and keep going. Keep that network going.
Besides some technical skills, what are some key skills that you consider important for to be successful in this field?
So technical skills, I would have first have said communication skills and working with others, I think would have been above the technical skills, even though as you think aerospace engineering, I'm going to need some technical skills. I would say technically coding, computer programming is very important. That's not something that I came to NASA with. I had zero experience in computer programming, and I learned that on the job. So being willing to learn, even when you have your first job, wherever that is, being willing to learn and gaining skills and getting on the job training is very, very important. Learning to understand how people work is very important. Technical skills, that's a tough one. I would say computer programming, your math, and being able to locate the right answer, knowing where to look, I think is probably the most important.
When you're on any project, do you ever feel like you might not be able to achieve the goal?
Absolutely. I would say daily. I question myself and seeing whether I'm going to get the right answer, and sometimes you won't, and that's okay. But I'm a list taker. I write all these lists. I have lists everywhere I go, and it makes me feel good to check something off. And so I'll even write it down just to check it off. So yes, if I don't hit every box that I'm going to check, that's okay. I'm still feel accomplished enough that I've done something that is of value. Now, I've never had a mission failure, and I'm very happy that I haven't had a mission failure, but there's definitely been failures of communication that I felt horrible about. And sometimes people misunderstood my intent, or I didn't communicate things well. And the only thing you can do with that is go back and say, hey, I'm sorry, I did not do this well, or something happened and things changed. But communicating the intent and your why is so important. And if you misstep on that, it's hard to come back, but you always go back, you apologize and say, this is what happened. And you move on to the next thing.
It's really important that because now nowadays I'm a student, but I think that even though as students we didn't really like have the common sense to say I'm sorry, this
Mhm.
wasn't like a good way to achieve those things or to say things to you. But if this is in college, I can imagine where it's going to be in the professional field, no? But it's a really important thing to consider.
Yeah.
So moving into more questions, are there any opportunities for us Mexican women to work in the environments such as yours?
So my particular environment is with NASA. We our hiring base is U.S. citizens. So unfortunately, that very much limits the opportunities for the women in Mexico to work. However, we have contract employment with hundreds of companies, which may not have those same restrictions. So there's really not much of a difference for the employee. It's where they get their paycheck from. But there but there are lots of opportunities to be in this type of environment, and educational opportunities if you're looking to work with a university. So we have university engagement and partnerships all the time. So whether it's a mission to Mars or a mission to the moon or an aeronautics research, we partner with colleges and universities everywhere. So that's one way, and kind of push through the university to do that. Um, Internships are also a little bit difficult, but there's also like NASA TV and the blogs and websites and podcasts that we have a lot of them. You can kind of stay involved and do it that way. And there's also, so I'm involved with this International Astronautical Congress, and I go every year to this conference, and all the space agencies across the world are there. And it's not just agencies; it's businesses and academia, and space is not just a NASA thing. Everybody in the world works in space. So the Mexican Space Agency, there's a lot of opportunity there as well. And then collaborating with international partners, further along in your career too, is definitely an opportunity.
They want you to talk about more about the Mars mission and specifically which part you were and what was the biggest challenge in this mission.
Okay, let's see. I worked 3 Mars missions. The first 2 were orbiters, and I helped put them into orbit. And the difficult part was that it wasn't instantaneous. It took a very long time. The first orbiter I worked was Mars Odyssey, and we used the technique called aerobraking to get into orbit. And that is using the solar panels of the spacecraft. Imagine my arms as big solar panels, and they're using the drag of the atmosphere to slow down. And it takes multiple orbits to slow down, and you have to monitor the spacecraft and make small adjustments in the altitude to make sure that, one, it doesn't burn up and get too deep in the atmosphere. 2, it doesn't get too high in the atmosphere because then it won't be doing anything. You don't have enough drag. So Odyssey took 76 days to get into orbit, and I worked 74 of them.
Okay.
And holidays, and they were 12-hour days. It was back in the early 2000s. It was before y'all were born, but it was very intense. And every day you were wondering, how can I make this spacecraft safe and effective? And so it was the constant hands-on. It was difficult. It took a lot of time, but after it was done, it was 6 months, actually, it was 3 months, 73 days, 3 months worth of work, and that was very difficult. The second mission I worked on was Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and it was the same thing. It was bigger, but it had a lot more margin, and so that took 45 days, 145 days, of which I worked 143. Now, this was difficult, and it was less time a day. It was only like 4 hours for me a day. But what was difficult about that mission is that it launched in 2005. It got there in 2006. And I had my first child on the day it launched. I was expecting the day the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter launched. And so I remember on my maternity leave having a very small infant, trying to feed her. The dog was barking, my husband coming in. I'm working from home before working from home was a thing. And that was hard. That was hard to juggle everything and making sure that everything worked out. And it did. Technically, there was little difficulty there because we had done it before. It was a more robust spacecraft, and there was a lot of trust amongst the partners who were all doing it. But the timing of that was difficult for me because I had a small child. And then the third one was Mars Phoenix. And I think there was always the trouble with Phoenix was that we were following up on, we had several failures. NASA had several failures in the decades before, and we were trying to make sure that this one didn't hit any of those roadblocks. So making sure that the radar worked, making sure that the software was updated appropriately, making sure that we could see the ground, making sure that the parachute was robust, making sure that the timing when the parachute was released, that it wasn't too early or too late. There were a lot of things technically that we had to make sure that we didn't follow in the footsteps of previous landers that did not make it. And trying to stay within the cost constraints, and like that was the one that was my contribution was for 6 minutes of flight, and like I said, I worked 5 years for that 6 minutes of flight, and that was difficult.
I can imagine going through this Mars mission and also your pregnancy.
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard balancing everything, but I would just do it. It was so fun to me, and it wasn't that somebody told me I had to invest so much time in it. People would say, Jill, you know, you might want to consider not working that day. You've got a small kid at home, but I wanted to. It was fun for me. That was where my passion was. And so that's what I did. And I don't think my children are suffering for it. So
No. I think that they're very proud of you.
thank you.
They want you to, are there any media or contact information where we can tell to you, or any information you can share with us to get into this field, besides all you said about internships and the NASA website and all of that?
Yeah, I think that I explained about the internships. We have a intern.nasa.gov is the website that we use. Is very centralized. We have 10 NASA centers, which I don't know that people realize. We have 10 of them. I work at NASA Langley Research Center, which is the oldest, and it's a research center. It's not a space flight center like Kennedy or Johnson in Houston. So we have different opportunities there. For example, we have a volunteer program. So if you have the means and can volunteer some time, we have a program that can help people do that as a student. The contractor opportunities are large in every center, and I would try to optimize to increase your likelihood of getting in somewhere by just applying to as many different things as you can, and then finding the contacts and asking for recommendations. If you know somebody who works at NASA, or can reach out to somebody and say, I would like to do this, is my interest. Can you find me a point of contact that is in that area of research or in that area of operations, and going that way. But probably the easiest at the university level is to go through the university and see if there are partnerships, if there are small satellites, if there are different opportunities that the university as a whole can partner with a space agency, and getting into that as well.
Okay, we will take into consideration all of that. But now they want to know more about space exploration, and they ask if there are any plans to develop space exploration further, and they would like the idea of theaters or asteroid mining.
Oh yeah, so the DART mission, we just saw in the news the other day that the DART mission actually was able to change the trajectory of an asteroid, which is really very interesting. So NASA works in so many different areas of space. They're not all my expertise, but I'm going to tell you what I know. The DART mission worked on the asteroid. So we also had an asteroid sample return, OSIRIS-REx, that I believe was launched in 2016, and that just came back in 2022. It went to the asteroid Bennu, and it brought back samples, and that was successful. see, Artemis mission. We launched the first Artemis mission. It was a test flight to go around the moon, and the second test flight will have people on it, and that is also going around the moon, expected, I believe, in early 2025. So we're still working that. That is a huge piece of what NASA does right now, is for getting back to the moon, not only just to get back to the moon, because we've done that before, right? We're not just trying to do what we've done before, but we want to stay there. And we want to make sure that we can get to a place where we can have a sustaining presence on the moon. We just, there was Intuitive Machines launched just a month ago and landed on the moon. So that was the first U.S. Presence on the moon, like a lander on the moon in 50 years, which was very exciting for us. It landed a little bit funny, but it did communicate, and it did bring us down data, and it lasted a few days, hoping that we are able to wake that up in 2 weeks and get more data. So that's it's a very hot topic right now. Mars exploration. We have Mars Perseverance. They're working on Mars right now, gathering samples to hopefully one day return them to Earth.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it's such a huge part of the Mars timeline that we would love to collect samples and return them back. What's happening right now is that the budget is for that mission has just gotten huge, and they're revamping how that project will look. So not quite sure. It's on pause right now to see when we're going to launch the component to help bring the samples back. But that's just one piece in our mission to get humans to the surface of Mars, that we're hoping by the 2040s to get people walking on the surface of Mars. So that's super exciting. And there's so many different areas. We're also working on solar missions and missions to the outer planets. And to learn the science, and even around our own planet, we have satellites that we're launching constantly to figure out how our climate is evolving, and how our oceans are evolving, and how we live and how we will live in the future.
That's really exciting. I can't wait to see if we actually can have humans in Mars.
Yeah, me too.
Are there, I know, they want to know what's your opinion on Dyson spheres. They think that it's a pretty cool concept to brought to reality.
I'm sorry, can you say that one again? What's the what concept?
The Dyson spheres.
The volunteering concept. Is that what you
Yeah.
said? Okay.
Yeah.
I wish I had the website. It might be volunteer.langley. I'll have to, if you Google volunteer Langley NASA, you'll probably find it. And I think there's a call in the early summer for students to, if you're in the local area, to volunteer some time. And actually, they might even have remote opportunities. But it is, you have an interest in research, you want to volunteer your time, you're not getting paid for this, but you want to work on some aspect of what NASA Langley is doing. And it goes through a process, and if you're selected, they'll match you with a mentor, and you'll help. And it's a great opportunity. It's fairly new. I think it's only been around a couple of years, but it's, some people who are local high school students and want to work in a wind tunnel, and they come in and they help, operate a wind tunnel for a little while, and it's an amazing experience.
Yeah. They want to know if you have met any astronauts.
I have. Every time I go down to Johnson Space Center, I usually run into a couple, either by sight or by relationship. So I've met a few. They're few and far between, and they reside in Johnson. But so we don't have. I think one of the current commercial crew astronauts came from Langley. Victor Glover, I believe, came from Langley. I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me, but I believe he's one of the next astronauts who will be going in space, and so he has a background here. So I would say I know a few of them personally, but not many. Not many.
They say what more? Well, you already answered this, but they want to know managing work and personal life. They know that this must be difficult for some people, but have you have any recommendations for us that we are still in college?
Yeah, I would do everything you can. Everything you can, but when you're tired, take a break. It's easy to just say you can do it all, but you can't.
Yeah.
But do what you can and say yes to the fun things, even if maybe they're volunteer, maybe they don't make much money. If you can, say yes to whatever sounds fun because this is the rest of your life. You want to find out what makes you happy. And when you're in a career, and I would just try everything you can do not to get burned out. And if you can take a break, breathe, think about what's important to you, do that. And there are often days where I will put in a lot of hours in the office and I'll go home but I'll feel happy and exhausted, but happy and accomplished. And that's what makes me go. If I don't feel like I'm making a difference, if I feel like today's not the day, I won't put in that much effort and I'll rest and I'll recover and I'll go for a run or something and I'll come back the next day and try again. Because that's what we do. We if you don't feel great the day one, you try again day two, and you just do what you can to get through. But find your own balance. You can't rely on what my balance is not going to be right for you. You have to find that out for yourself.
Yeah, we're more a personal question. Me as a mechanical engineer, I don't really like see much about space. We see like mechanical fluids and all of that. But do you think, or do you recommend for us to do like a PhD related to that field for
Mm-hmm.
to like kind of gain some way to the goal, or do you think that it's not like a really difference between
Yeah,
engineers?
so I don't have a PhD. I am not, I don't have a doctorate. And as much as my people around me tried to encourage me to get my doctorate right away, I didn't want to. And I was burned out on classwork and I just didn't want to stay in a classroom that much. I couldn't, I needed a break. So it was my decision to not do that at the time. Now, I've had thoughts since then, well, maybe I should have, after a couple of years, gone back and gotten a PhD in a different area. But for me, I haven't needed it because I went into management and I didn't burrow too deep into technical after about 10 years. I left the technical fields to do more management work. I didn't necessarily need that. So it's going to be based on what you want to do. If you want to go into very specific discipline and spend the next 30 years in that discipline, then maybe the PhD is the right way to go. But if you want to try different things, if you want to, if you're not sure, if you want to get a job first, that's okay too. That's okay too. And NASA hires I mean, our system is a schooling system is a little bit different than Mexico, but we hire people with bachelor's degrees. We hire people
Okay,
with master's degrees, and we hire people with PhDs. We hire people with associate's degrees. We in fact last year, I led an effort to go out to our community colleges. We have 23 community colleges, and these are 2-year programs, so they are not a bachelor's degree. But what we needed at the time are technicians to work in our wind tunnels and people to run the operations and the facilities. And that's very, very important part of our mission. So it didn't require a bachelor's degree. So that it all depended on what is fun to you, what your passion is, and what you want to do. And depending on that, yes, maybe a PhD is going to be very important for your future, but maybe not.
okay. Thank you for that advice. And finally, they want to know how was your first day at NASA?
How was my first day?
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't remember it. I remember having to fill out a lot of paperwork, and we had to take an oath, and so we have orientations here for the people who are their first day in my organizations, and I go now and I introduce myself to our new employees, and we give them tours and we tell them all the wonderful things that they're going to be invested in. What I remember is not really knowing what I was doing. I didn't know if I would stay. I didn't know if I'd have a career here. I knew I had a job. I didn't know if I would like it, but I loved it. So finding my niche, finding the people that made the job worthwhile. That was really important. It took some time. It didn't happen in an instant. It didn't happen on the first day, but I found some lifelong friends at work. And I found some really important things that NASA's doing that I want to be a part of. And that was the important thing to me.
That's wonderful. Well, I think we're at the end of this interview. Thank you so much for being here. I don't know if you want to say something to all the people that are watching us.
Yeah, sure. I want to thank you for inviting me. This has been super fun for me. I'm just so glad that we had the mutual connection. Again, it's all about people and your connections, right? So, doing these things and talking with you all is very, not only it's fun for me, but it's inspiring for me too. And it reminds me of what we all do here, and what our passions are. And I appreciate that. So thank you. This was valuable for me.
Thank you so much. Well, I think we're over. So thank you.
Okay.
We will be in touch if we have any more plans for that we
Excellent.
want to you to be a part of.
Thank you
so
very much. It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate talking with you.
Me too. You're a really amazing woman. I really inspired right now. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye.
How to describe us?
Y Fernanda Guerrejón a las 2 p.m.
Committed, hardworking, and daring. And we're so proud of what we have achieved thanks to that. But we are also a generous, funny, adventurous, and dreamy team. And the most important thing of all is that we're a family. A family that seeks to go very far and win Formula Student by becoming the benchmark team. And with your help, we can achieve this dream. How to describe us?
Más de 120 universidades de todo el mundo. Primer y único equipo representando a México. Un sueño. Somos TM Racing, una escudería universitaria que nació con el sueño de representar a México en la Fórmula Student, una competencia británica donde universitarios de todo el mundo diseñan, construyen y superan sus límites. Somos un equipo de más de 50 estudiantes que buscan llegar a la segunda etapa de la competencia. Nos enfrentamos a la categoría de Concept Class, un reto de planear y diseñar un racing car que sea seguro de pilotar, eco-friendly y costeable. Es por esto que buscamos la ayuda de patrocinadores entusiastas que nos apoyen con los costos y manufactura del auto. Haz que el nombre de tu marca llegue al otro lado del mundo en esta gran competencia. Construyamos un sueño juntos. Más de 120 universidades.